first up, I wondered, what was it that motivated the decision to implement a 100% digital workflow at NYU Langone Pathology?
Well, interestingly, the full adoption, the full 100% goal, came from the idea that if you're going to adopt a new technology, to do it slowly and partially is really not the way to do it. For any kind of change management techniques, for any kind of change in workflow that's done anywhere, we rarely ever have any kind of hybrid workflow that goes on for too long or something that lags on slowly. The psychology of the human mind is that it needs some time to adapt, but it doesn't need endless time, and it needs goal-driven processes that feel predictable and solid and established in the way that they can be accepted. So through the process, we totally understood that this was the way. The further along we got, we understood that very slow or laggy adoption is not the way forward for this kind of technology.
Okay. So when did the conversations start? You know, what sparked those conversations in the first place?
So, Helen, the thing is, this has been in conversation for many years, right? Since the late 2000s, people have been talking about it. But the technology advanced to a point where it became robust, right? And it took a long time. But also, just people took a long time to come to grips with the idea that this could happen. But for us, in our institution, we had a dean/CEO, a shared role of one person who was a radiologist. So he understood diagnostic stuff.
Yeah.
They had done this transformation before in radiology in 2000, early 2010s. And when he heard this idea, he loved the idea, Dean Grossman, and he's really encouraged us to go for it. And he said, if you're going to go for it, go all out. Go, big bang, as he described it, and go all out. So I was the early champion who'd been asking every year for this beforehand. So
you finally wore them down.
Yeah. 4 or 5 years before this, I had vendors in my office. I was doing it rogue, just kind of looking into the technology and understanding it. But we didn't have a gateway. We didn't have a way to do it. So I was aware of what was going on. And so when we got this notification that he's interested, I just naturally leapt to the foreground and basically took it on as the director of that entire new thing. So there's a project management team, and I think this is super important. Our IT department provided us with a project management team. Yep. And they really guided the decision making, and I was, of course, in those decisions. But we had a group of people. We had IT people, we had pathology administration, lab administration, institutional people, staff, like non-physician staff. So project management brought all these teams together to look at everything. So that's where I was. And we had to build a brand new thing from scratch.
So because it was brand new, who did you consult before you started diving in? I mean, did you visit any other digital labs? Did you talk to any of your peers at other institutions?
Yeah, so important to do that. And we went across town to Mount Sinai, that's in New York, and they had scanning for a long time. I don't remember how many years, but it was more than 5 years. And we also took a trip to Ohio State. Ohio State had scanning for a long time as well.
Right. Yeah.
And we went there not to replicate their stuff. We went there for ideas. And in brainstorming, you have to see how people are doing it in order to get a picture of what that actually looks like when you're in a lab. I also spoke with a lot of people that we didn't visit. And we invited, also another really important thing, we invited speakers to come and talk to us, because from a psychological perspective, the pathologists needed to hear about the topic a little bit. They needed to understand different perspectives. And again, we didn't want to replicate any of their stuff, but it really makes a difference to have people giving a 45-minute talk on the topic and what they did at their location. So hugely important. Yeah,
great. So once you started this implementation, you did it in a record time, 10 months. So could you take me through that timeline from green light implementation?
Yeah, so green light, well, I'm counting green light as the first time the dean said we should go big was around the late 2023. So it was like before the new year of 2024. And as the new year began, February, March, is when we started organizing. So we started talking to vendors. We started, project management. I think really early, maybe even in January. And so we started talking about it. We started getting vendors in. We started getting demos. We started aggregating people, pointing out people who would be a part of the team. And I mean, I'm just going to describe that chunk of time, January of 2024 to August of 2024, was when all the planning happened. So everything, we chose the vendor, we had the teams put in, we developed a timeline, we developed goals, and it's not a lot of time to do this. Like I've spoken to a lot of institutions now as a speaker, but also beforehand, and the time here varies. And because we received funding, upfront for this kind of stuff, I think it really, opened up our ability to go faster too. And by September, we had rolled out the first batch of services.
Wow.
We have 95 pathologists at NYU, and I think we rolled out maybe 15 or so in the first month in September. But there's a lot that went into that time. I wish I could show my calendar. It was like so packed. And and we had town halls, we had outside speakers, we had, town halls were the best because they were just open discussions where people were worried and freaking out about it, but then some people were excited. So it was all over the place.
Yeah. Oh, sounds fun.
Yeah,
So what did you find that with the most challenging aspects of the implementation, or any particular pain points that you came across?
The pathologist.
Right.
There is a huge
So it was the change management, basically.
Yeah, it's a huge, huge, huge component. And Helen, I'll be honest, before I've been reading on this subject for 10 plus years, nobody ever talked about the change management. People talked about the reluctance, but nobody talked about the fact that we have to consider that as a primary target to accommodate the mindsets of pathologists. Like, until you get that buy-in, it's almost impossible to move through the system.
So how did you approach that change management? I mean, you mentioned the town halls, which I think probably a big part of it. What else? How else did you approach it?
I was really lucky that our IT team put me in touch with one person on their team named Casey, who was actually trained in change management. So he
Fantastic.
had done he had done that. So I originally knew somebody from one of my leadership courses who I contacted, Kelly, and she put me in touch with him. Because she was great. I did a course with her on change management. It was amazing, like maybe a year before. And then, so Casey was by my side for a lot of this planning. And so when I say town hall, it was Casey and I doing this town hall meeting. And he would prepare kind of anonymized ways of asking questions so people didn't feel self-conscious or, like there was things I never thought about. Like I would be like, oh, let's just take the questions. But he said we should anonymize it so people can ask whatever they want. And people asked whatever they wanted. And sometimes it was brutal, the question. I felt horrible, but he would reassure me that from a change management perspective, you want to hear the worst and you want to hear all the concerns now so you can address them rather than you hearing the concerns when you go live. Right, Helen? So that's too late to be able to change stuff. So that's what we did. And we did many of these. We did small ones with certain groups, bigger ones with everyone. Across campuses, we have different hospitals. So I would go to the other hospitals and do this as well, like at the different hospitals we have. I treated them all as separate, groups of people. So it was a lot of work to talk, but I think it was so worth it to do that.
And how much support did you receive from the technology vendors? And was it sufficient? Would you like more? Was it useful?
Yeah, and I don't say this, I don't endorse any company, but I mention them because I work with them on the project. So Philips was our company, and we we did get a lot of support from them. They came into the lab. They actually went through our entire workflow from beginning to end to try to analyze components of it and summarize things for us in a way that maybe we hadn't seen. Like, we see them for inspections, we look at them daily for quality assurance, but we don't have an outside person come and check out our process, right? So it was unique to see them show us the process, and we would kind of get a bird's eye view of what could be roadblocks and problems and workflow situations. So they really helped us in that way. They also analyzed, of course, our data and how much production we have of slides and cases, and what would be the optimal number of scanners, the optimal number of staffing proposed. Because we had to build all this from scratch. So we took their opinions in for sure, and we took them with weight, and then we discussed them internally and decided what we felt about that as well, and came with a consensus. So it was really good to have that collaboration. And I go to other institutions now to speak, and I always tell them that, again, I don't endorse a company, but whatever company you talk to, make sure that they are able to invest that kind of time to collaborate with you and help you come up with best practices and propose workflows.
And was training and troubleshooting part of that package as well?
Yes, so that's another cool thing. So we actually had an on-site person from Philips. We still have her for a 2-year contract to be on site. Yeah. So training, she did all the training with, when she was away, there was a backup, but she did all the training for the pathologists, all the training for the staff, all the training for the new employees, all the training for the experienced employees, everyone. She also helped troubleshoot in the early days of people having problems, people having, hardware issues, mouse issues, even little things. But it was a huge comfort to have somebody in the hospital all the time at any campus who you can call.
Yeah. Oh, it sounds like a great vendor experience, actually.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
No, it's great.
So what impacts have you noticed since switching to digital?
Yeah, the collaboration thing is massive. So if we have 5 or 6 or 7 sites where pathologists sit right now, it used to take 1, 2, 3 days to get a case over from another. Even though we're all close to New York, Helen, there's couriers, there's preparing staff, there's secretaries receiving it. Things get delayed in that kind of physical workflow. So the collaboration thing is amazing, because now if I'm a pathologist and I need to share with 2 or 3 people on 2 or 3 sites, I send them all one email with the link, and they open it up, and within a minute they all have access. Now that would have taken 8 days if we did it with 3 pathologists previously. So that's one. The second one is that there is a deep mindset change, and this is something that you can't explain in data. The way pathologists work is very different. We don't distribute any glass slides to anyone. And in fact, I've given people a without phone call way of requesting slides. As a digitized, we did a lot of customization. So just by clicking some buttons, you can request a slide for any case that you want to see on glass. And currently, 0.13% of cases are being requested on glass, 0.13. So 99.87% are signed out without the use of glass. And so we track everything with metrics. And I've encouraged them to please request glass, and nobody's requesting the glass. So there is a mindset change. These are some of these people were in resistance before, and they are not, clearly. They have absorbed it, and that gives people confidence. That gives people confidence that they can adjust the way they work, they can become flexible, they can take on something new, regardless of how old they are or how many years they've been practicing. And I think there's a deep confidence that arises from that kind of change. And the third thing I just want to mention to you is our visibility in the hospital, the amount of interest in pathology. It cannot be underestimated how much it's soared. The amount of medical students coming to check it out, hospital people. Again, it's a philosophical shift in the way pathology does.
Great to hear. So as part of that mindset shift what's sort of anecdotal evidence? What are people in your department saying about digital pathology now compared to when you first suggested it?
I mean, we have half the pathologists with remote setups so far. We're rolling that out in phases. So at home, they can work from home now.
Yeah.
Um, and they all just like love it. Every week I get somebody gushing about how much they love the fact that they can work from home like a few days a week. And, it's again, another mindset change, right? Where it's the rigidity is gone. And there's an openness to be a little bit different. And they love it. Like, occasionally, yes, it's technology. We'll have a downtime. We'll have a technological problem, right? And those things will happen. But when I get complaints about that, what it makes me feel is that, like, hey, they've they complain about downtime, but that's going to happen, right? Everybody's worried about their work. But that tells me that they're relying on it and they don't want the glass. Like when it goes down for a little bit, they'll wait for it to get fixed and then they'll go back to it. So that's the way they work now, right? And I think that's incredible. It's not easy to get 95 doctors to change the way they work.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Great. Absolutely. So I'm sure when you were first trying to get this off the ground in such a, within a year, people were telling you that it couldn't be done and that you were mad. So how do you respond when someone tells you that your aspirations are not possible in pathology?
I mean, this is a personal thing. I actually love challenges like that. So for me personally, I loved it because it gives you something to, get into, right? And
Do you like
I
proving
strongly,
people wrong, do you think?
yeah. I mean, I planned this for a long time in my head. It wasn't something that I just kind of did because nobody else was doing it. Like
Mm.
for years now, I'd known that if I was to do this, I knew how I would do it. And this gave me the runway to do it. So I never had a doubt that we could do it. And I love the fact that we were organized in the way through the IT team because I think they were crucial in because they were building us this. It's a technological change, right? But
Mm.
it's a psychological change on the other side. So I dealt with the psychology side and the change side, and they
Mm.
helped me with all the tech and
Yeah.
making sure that it works fast and smooth and reliably. So no, I never thought that we couldn't do it. But what's crazy, Helen, is that we live in a world of precedents, right? And if all the literature I read said that it's a phased in approach over 5 years, 10 years, the most successful institutions had done it over a long period of time. It just didn't resonate with the way we were doing it. So we rewrote that idea.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's sometimes you have to do something unprecedented, I guess.
Sure. And I know that you've been talking about this at meetings and conferences. So are people now coming to you for like asking for your blueprint for how to do this and how to implement
Yeah.
pathology in one go?
So what's really cool, what I really love is that we now are a reference point, right? So in the conversations that institutions can have with their upper administrative leadership, right? In the past, Helen, there was only documentation about phased in approaches over many years. And so everybody was requesting phased in approaches for the funding. I have now spoken to multiple institutions who have now referenced us and now been approved at their own institution for a single large distribution of resources to do this. So this is what happens, right? Is that when somebody does it, you think, oh, that can be done too in one go. And now everybody wants, there are places now trying to do this. And
Right.
in my typical style, we have not even yet published our thing yet because I've been so kind of occupied just talking. I'm not really like that. I'm not going to publish for, it's not about that. I'm happy to talk to any institution at any time to discuss and present to them what we did as a template. And I find that's really helpful. Like it's more grassroots and you have a conversation and you meet with people and, it's been really good.
Right. Well, Syed, you've answered all my questions and really given me a really good overview of the process you went through and it's and its benefits. Is there anything else you wanted to add to this story to tell our readers about before we close?
I just want to, yeah, I would love to just tell, there's a lot of noise and hype around digital pathology and AI and so much. It's deafeningly noisy, that space. But I would encourage people to be calm in examining what they need and what they want, and talk to people who they feel resonate with them, about, how to discuss these topics. Don't buy everything you see, and don't do the doomer stuff that people are talking about. Like, stay optimistic, and this is a really good movement for pathology as a specialty.
Great. Well, I think that's a really good message to close on, and some really solid advice for other people wanting to go on this journey. So thank you very much.